You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.
Welcome to Above the Garage, a Nick and June, the Handmaid's Tale podcast.
Hi, I'm Marigold.
Hi, I'm Tina.
Hi, I'm Ginger.
Hi, I'm Helen.
And I'm Kate. So this episode opens with some very cool aerial shots of everyone walking in twos, the handmaids on the Janine Bridge, then the wives and commanders, and the Marthas, and then the Econo people. And June's voiceover says, "We come together in peace to celebrate the babies born in our district. We dedicate ourselves and our children to God. It takes a village and machine guns. Who among them can be persuaded? Who can be turned, ignited, to burn this shit place to the ground?" And there are very cool shots of them all merging. Lydia is scooting along on her scooter, yelling at them, pretending she's still as powerful as always. And Alma calls her hell on wheels. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I love Alma so much.
Yeah.
And Lydia announces that the most blessed handmaids will be sitting in the front, and Janine eats that shit right up. Hilarious that June gets a seat of honor after immediately getting her baby the hell out of there. But we learn of Matthew's had a baby too, and then we learn she's had 3. Jesus, poor girl, what a life.
There's that shot when they're going up in the church. I noticed somebody, maybe Lydia or somebody, says under his eye, and then there's that really cool overhead shot of them, the handmaids walking up the stairs that looks like an eye. I
Even with the
love that shot.
Super cool.
The cinematography on the show is just, I mean, it's always astounding, but that shot in particular just really kind of took my breath away with how cool it was.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that the ants were like patting down the handmaids as they came in? It was like, I mean, obviously it was because of the bombing at the last like, large event, but it was just funny to me. I don't know.
I don't know if we even discussed this in, I think it was 3-2, and June and Beth are talking, and they mention Offglen, and one of them says, "Oh, if you heard of her work."
Yeah.
I liked that reference. Then we're at Holly's baptism, and fucking Jerry, man. Worst possible choice for Godfather. Holly's delighted that Terry isn't showing up and says, "It's a sign. Hannah does not need to be sanctified by a bunch of holier-than-thou child molesters." I love Holly. She ends with, "You cannot let religion control your choices. That's what they all want." It's so relevant today, everything. Like,
I know. Yeah, it really is.
Scary.
I don't, like, even earlier with the you need the machine guns to keep us in place, you know, like guns and babies.
But I love how, like, you know, the Gilead scene in church, and this is like the only time we really see them in church.
Yes, finally. I've been asking this question forever, and I'm like,
and like they have machine guns, and like they have to be so prim and proper and follow all the rules. And then here you have like this flashback of June and her family, and they're cursing in church and calling out child molesters, and it's just very casual, but they're so happy.
Right.
And then you look at Gilead, the contrast is just stark, where they need like machine guns to keep them in line, and they're obviously miserable, even though they're supposed to be following God's whatever they think is supposed to be God's rules, even though it's not.
Literally, do you think anyone is happy in this place? Maybe like Calhoun?
No.
Maybe some of the commanders.
Yeah.
I think it's funny how Holly said like sanctified by child molesters, referring to the Catholics, but it's true for Gilead too.
Right. Marrying off 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting that they mentioned June's father, because we really don't hear like anything about him, because she said,
I didn't understand that point.
I didn't either.
Like, why would she care what her father thought? Maybe there's a line cut that made more sense. Like, because he did go to church. She said this was his parish and another one. So maybe she was saying like he would want it at some point, and it just got cut.
Yeah, because I think those are the only 2 references, I believe.
Yeah, that I can.
I think so.
Because didn't she say that her father wasn't, or didn't Holly or somebody say her father wasn't, like it sounded like they decided to have her.
Donor. Did she say that? I don't know.
I thought she said like that June was very much wanted. Like
she did say
I think
that.
she
You're right.
purposely got pregnant in whatever way whether it was like a one night stand or
IVF, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounded more like a one night stand. But he was involved to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Sounded like it.
He didn't sound like terrible by any means. He sounded like Holly asked him to play this role, and he did.
Yeah.
So yeah, but she said the line you're about to say, Ginger. What did she say about her father?
He spent a hell of a lot more time at Fenway than Mass, and then that's when they mentioned like you can't let religion control your choices.
Is he dead? I guess it kind of sounded like that was implied.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I think he'd be there otherwise.
I would assume so, but
or they would know if he wanted it.
I mean, I would assume he at least didn't make it when Gilead first started. So
right, but I think even what she said there probably implied he was dead.
Probably.
Yeah, I think she said, do you think your father would have cared?
Yeah.
Otherwise, she probably would have used a different tense of the, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Moira and Holly want to bail, clearly, but June really wants to baptize her, and Luke says we're doing it, and June looks super excited. I wonder why, just because she grew up without religion, maybe, and the grass is always greener, but maybe, I guess that implication is that part of it's for her father.
Well, later on, she says it's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
So I think like June, she's always, even like throughout the show, she's always had some spirituality and like her own, she's prayed on her own. Mm-hmm. So like, I think she believes, but she's just never been like formally a part of any, I guess, religion or church or anything, you know? So I think that's just her own version of like, okay, I don't go to church all the time, but I want to baptize my child for insurance so that she's right in God's eyes.
Yeah.
That line really bothered me though. Like, because like they basically believe if the baby wasn't baptized and died, it would be in purgatory, right? Yeah. I think that's what the Catholics believe. I was raised Catholic and I should know this.
I was also, right?
It bugs me when people believe that and June believe that. I don't know. I mean, and of course, everybody, you know, is flawed. Everybody believes things that.
It sounds like she didn't fully believe it. She's open to it. I like my uncle's exactly like that. He literally is like, yeah, I believe in God just in case or something, you know? Like,
yeah.
Like, right. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he doesn't see through that.
Luke also says like a little line at the end, like it's a beautiful day to thank God. So for me, it felt like, well, June was maybe not decided on it, but Luke influenced her in a bit.
Yeah, he seemed to want
maybe.
It. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I loved how Holly called him Chief when he said we're going to do it.
Oh, did she? I missed that.
Yeah, she said
that's awesome.
One thing I wondered about one thing I think is fascinating is the difference between June's mom and Serena's. And I wonder what Serena would have been like growing up with Holly as mom. Would she be...
That's interesting.
Would she use her powers for good? Or is she just Serena?
Or if June was raised by Serena's mom, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we're finally at a church in Gilead. Something I've been asking about forever. Why don't they go to church? But for this big dedication, June calls it later, we are at a church and June sees Fred sit down and she says, I ought to feel hatred for this man. I know I ought to feel it, but it isn't what I do feel. What I feel is more complicated than that. I don't know what to feel. It isn't love. And I believe that's a line straight from the book. A line that I don't love, by the way.
I don't.
But I think, Stockholm Syndrome is real for one thing. And secondly, like Fred's a devil that she knows in a place that's very scary. But yeah, I don't love it.
I don't mind the line up until it isn't love.
I know.
I wish they had just chopped that off the end. Other than that, I think it's a good line for how she feels about Fred. But it isn't love. I remember when I heard it the first time, I was like, hang on a second. What?
Why would she say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that really drives home the fact that this is Stockholm Syndrome thoughts, you know, because as much as she hates Fred and even Serena, like with Fred, at least she could easily manipulate him. And we kind of see that like in this season with her and Lawrence, and she doesn't know, like she thought he was good because he helped Emily escape and her daughter and was going to help her. And then he kept flip-flopping. So at least with Fred, there was that comfort there. Like she could manipulate him. Not that she had an easy life with him or in Gilead, but like things were kind of predictable. I mean, he gave her freedom. He let her play Scrabble. Like he gave her things that And she got away with a lot more than she would have gotten away with at any other household, even Lawrence's house, in a way.
He took her to Jezebel's and forced her to fake enjoying sex with him. So,
but that's the Stockholm syndrome part. Like, and it's Gilead. So like, these are obviously horrible things, but in her mind, like, because she's been with these people for so long, like even with Serena, it's why she kind of keeps trying with her, because there's Stockholm syndrome traits with like both of them, you know, and like she's familiar with them at least.
I think it was in our episode 5 recording. I think you said, Kate, that like June really holds on to like people, like to try to see like the good in them until the very end, and I think that's really true. Or maybe not the good, but like she keeps trying to give them chances. And I'm just thinking of that.
It wasn't me, but someone did say that.
Oh, okay.
And it is true. So then the wives bring in the stolen babies and they sit on the stage, and Janine sees baby Charlotte. She's excited. And then we see of Matthew looking at her baby and almost letting herself feel like a normal human. But when June says he's beautiful, she replies, they're all beautiful miracles, in her Gilead speak. As the ceremony goes on, June's thinking about Hannah's baptism. By the way, my brother had to jump through like a lot of hoops to be godfather for our children. He had to make a generous donation, I think. He had to be like prove that he was a member of a Catholic church. So it's interesting that this was so easy for Moira.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's always that hard. I'm sure there's some churches that make it
I
easy.
thought that to be like a godparent in the Catholic Church, you have to be confirmed Catholic, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that could be
I don't know.
They might have just, the donation, I think, is what did it. And we got baptized. We got them baptized because his mom was like, it's very important to her. So I don't want you to think that I think babies are sinful.
No.
Very good.
I didn't think you thought that. I was like, usually people do it out of like tradition or, you know, family. Yeah.
No, that idea drives me nuts too. Like, how? Born with sin. Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
The congregation in Gilead is making the same promises that Moira and Holly are making at Hannah's more intimate ceremony. And Hannah's ceremony seems sweet, but I can't imagine June would baptize her if she had a do-over. Although she does believe in God, or she seems to believe in God because of her like genuine prayers from time to time. Do you guys think that she would baptize her all over again, or baptize Holly if she had that choice?
I think she would.
Yeah. I think she'd be anti-religion at this point.
But she's not. I mean, I can see why. Yeah, she's not though. Like, she's still
praying does not mean you're not anti-religion. Like, she believes in God.
She has
but I think
faith.
that I think she would see that like what Holly said, she would believe. You don't need these. What are they? Sanctified child molesters.
I see what you're saying. Like, she can be spiritual outside of the confines of religion.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that what happened with Gilead would be a real turnoff for any religion.
Like what Helen was saying, like, I think maybe Luke was part of her decision in getting Hannah baptized.
Yeah.
Maybe it was important to him, or maybe he was Catholic. I don't know.
Then the head of the Gilead church starts talking about the innocent daughter of Gilead who was stolen from them by an unrepentant sinner. And Fred looks over at June. And that's the first time I noticed that Serena isn't at the dedication. And then he ends with, and may the Lord protect her and keep her safe. And June says, amen. Meaningfully, I think. Then Sylvia's walking up the subway stairs and she looks a bit lost and terrified. And then she sees Sylvia in the middle of the street. And Sylvia's like apologizing for something silly, not being able to find a parking space, and they embrace, and it's so sweet. It's been so many years since they've seen each other at that airport. Back in the birthmobile, June asks Lydia how she's feeling, and Lydia bristles, saying that they best be concerned about themselves and be good girls at the reception, make her proud. And Janine is still eating that shit up. Lydia's being stubborn about not receiving help for her injuries, but whatever, let her suffer.
I just can't deal with how they call them good girls though. Like, to me, it drives me nuts because I just feel like that's something you say to like a dog or something, like good girl, good boy, you know?
Yeah.
So like it just it infantilizes them, and it just drives me crazy how they do that.
And then the handmaids are all inside the Putnam's house, laying their bonnets in a pretty circle. There are so many pretty circles in this show. Mrs. Putnam then welcomes them, and she even says something nice to June about saving baby Angela on the bridge, and manages to spit out a bless you at Janine, and tells them to make themselves comfortable. I was wondering why the handmaids were invited. Like, whose idea was this?
Well, Lydia, I think in the van she says, Mrs. Putnam is being very generous, inviting you girls basically somewhere you're not supposed to be. Yeah. So I feel like it was Naomi. Like she just wanted some excitement or something. I love her so much. Like she wanted some excitement. She wanted a little drama, a little spice. She was like, you know what? I'm going to invite some handmaids and we'll really kick the party to the next level. Like
that will make the handmaids and Aunt Lydia sit in a different room. So that they are not part of the party, but they are there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's so weird. Yeah.
I kind of get the feeling though that she's being very nice and thanking like June and Janine. So like maybe she just was having I don't know, maybe after seeing what happened to Serena, I don't know. She's just feeling extra nice, I guess.
Yeah.
Weird.
I do like the idea though. She wants to spice up the party. Let's go with that.
She's like, another party. We need something different.
And right on cue of Matthew says, handmaids shouldn't be here. That's not how it works. June tells her to lighten up, which seems unlikely June. Serena then sneaks up on June from behind and asks if she's missed anything. So she's at the reception, not the ceremony. I like June's response. She says, just the usual Jello shots, charades, little karaoke. Serena does not laugh though. And June points out she didn't see her at the dedication. And Serena says, well, I didn't want to be a distraction. And June says, they might surprise you. The wives looked up to you once before. You inspired them. Serena's like, well, half of them walked out on me. And June points out the glass is half full. Half of them didn't. And then when Serena asks June if she regrets not leaving, she says, not without Hannah. At least there's still hope if I'm here. I may get to see her again. And that makes Serena sad because she says she can't say the same for Nicole. Neither can June, Serena, but she knows she's safe. By the way, my interests are now aligned with June's again. Now that she knows Holly is safe in Canada, I'm all for her staying in Gilead until she gets Hannah. It was just the safety of getting Holly out that concerned me in season 2. But I digress.
It's interesting, I guess, the contrast. June almost seems, I don't know if I should say happy, but she's like thinking positively, I guess, that she's decided to stay for Hannah. Like that's a no-brainer for her. Like I can't leave her. And even though she knew like she'd have to not see Holly, but Serena, I mean, obviously there are different points in their journey, but Serena's like bitter and devastated that she's not going to see her. But I think it kind of also like shows this is like the first time Serena's actually doing something unselfishly, whereas June is used to being selfless when it comes to her children.
I also think it's interesting that like as Matthew was like, oh, handmaids shouldn't be here. And like on my first watch of this, I was like, Matthew's just such a bitch. But like, I don't know, I have a different view of it now. I think she's really just trying to like guard herself and compartmentalize, and she probably is thinking of like Janine and her well-being, like, oh, it'd be hard for her if she was in Janine's spot to, see her baby at the house. So I know that she's being a bitch, but I also have, at least I interpret it as she's trying to protect herself, and it gives me a little bit more empathy for her.
But she says bitchy things, like
she does, yeah.
I wish your baby wasn't kidnapped.
But I think that's like the Stockholm syndrome coming out in her too. Like even in the church, she as soon as she saw her baby, like you can kind of see her Gilead mask crack a little and she looks sad.
Yeah.
And then when June mentioned like he's cute, trying to kind of like bond with her, she shut it down and went back to her Gilead speak as self-protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Fred approaches them and offers his hand to Serena, which she rejects, and June watches that with interest. Then we're at Emily and Sylvia's house, standing in the living room looking kind of awkward and out of place. And she's looking at pictures and a tiny shoe when Sylvia comes in and offers her pasta salad and a weird tea she likes that tastes like dirt. And Emily says, I don't want to make things awkward for you. And Sylvia tears up and says, it is awkward, but who cares? She's just, so happy that Emily's there. And Emily asks what time Oliver gets dropped off. Sylvia tells her he begs to stay home from school today, but she thought Emily would need some time to adjust. Can you guys imagine how Oliver felt at school all day? I think I'd have to let him stay home, because I haven't seen your mom in how many years? It's crazy.
Yeah, but I like that they give what I really love about this is how Sylvia gives Emily like the space that she needs. Yeah, obviously, like, yeah, and obviously they want to like reunite, and that's the natural thing. Like you want to hug her, you want to, bombard her with everything that you want to make up for, but I really love that they give her that space so she can like ease her way in.
Mm-hmm. Then Emily asks the terrifying question, does he remember me? And Sylvia shows her Oliver's room full of photos of her. Sylvia hasn't let him forget her. And then she shows him a picture he drew of Emily as a superhero fighting to come back home. And that's right when Oliver walks in on them and says, Mom? He says, hi, I'm not supposed to hug you till you're ready. And Emily agrees. How about we don't hug until we're both ready? And he's immediately like, not very awkward with her, and it's super sweet. He just wants to show her his school stuff like it was any normal day. And she looks up at Sylvia in awe and says, he's so big.
Yeah, I wrote like, this is probably like the smoothest like reunification of like a parent and a child in this show. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, it's very realistic, like kids, sometimes they are in their own little world and they're like, oh yeah, my other mom's here. Like, I'm going to tell her about my day at school and I want to read my dinosaur book. And like,
it's sweet.
I don't know. It was very sweet. It also made me cry, but it was sweet.
Yeah, I know. I'd have had to go in for the hug, I think, but you never know till you're in that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I love too, though, how real it is as far as like Sylvia's shaking, right? And then like, they're like tiptoeing around each other. And then I love how Sylvia just, who was it? One of them said it was awkward. And then Sylvia's like, yeah, it is awkward, but who cares? So like, I love that they acknowledge that, because I feel like, especially in this situation, it's easy to kind of like, everyone knows it's weird, but you don't want to say it. But
try to pretend it's not. Yeah.
But you can kind of tell, you can see like their bond, and they're just still honest with each other. Like, oh, it is awkward, but who cares? And we'll adjust to it, which makes it less awkward then.
Yeah. I love that too.
Then we are back with Lydia, who's resting, and Janine brings her tea, offers her macarons. And I wrote, it seems like she wants something. But no, she's actually just so sorry, genuinely sorry about what happened to Lydia, and she prayed so hard for her to get better. She says we all did, and Lydia says, I know what the girls think of me. And she points at the wives and says, and they blame me for Emily. Says she should never have saved her from the colonies. And Janine's like, well, I'm glad you saved me. And Lydia genuinely says, me too. They definitely like love each other in this scene.
I think this is another example, though, of like another form of Stockholm syndrome. Like, Janine is genuinely thankful, like what everything she says to Lydia, like she really means, even though she's had her child taken from her and she tried to jump off a bridge with her, and Lydia took her eye, like she's still so grateful to this woman, even though it's like her abuser. It's sad.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's Janine. And in the kitchen, the handmaids off Matthew's being hard to take again, defending Aunt Lydia, making the other handmaids like hate her, when Fred walks in and sends all of the other handmaids out to try the deviled eggs.
He's so creepy too, how he like talks to them.
Yeah,
so gross.
Even his walk is like sleazy. He's just slithering into the room.
Yeah.
You're right.
Slithering.
And I feel like the deviled eggs, a nice metaphor for June herself. The deviled egg. You're gonna love it. Go try the deviled egg.
It was a good choice. When it's just Fred and June, she points out that they can't eat from the buffet, the handmaids, and he says, I'll handle the complaints. And he asks June for advice on Serena, says he doesn't think she's satisfied planting flowers and knitting sweaters, and June agrees she never was. So June tells him to let her have a voice, a little power. That's the only way she's going to be happy.
June playing the both of them. No, that's all I wanted to say. First, Serena. Well, she played Serena.
Oh, yeah.
Now she's playing Fred.
Yeah.
To make them reconcile so that she also has
more power.
She's the third win in this win-win-win situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works. She gets the address of Hannah's school.
Yeah.
I love though how he's like, she can't keep hiding at her mother's. She's not satisfied planting flowers and knitting sweaters. And I'm like, God, you're such an asshole, because that's exactly what she was doing at your house too. Like, but I mean, I guess that's him like acknowledging that clearly she's not happy without any sort of power. But I don't know. It's just frustrating too, because he's like, again, I feel like he's trying to pretend like he cares for Serena, but I think he's more upset that it makes him look bad. Like he's at this ceremony at the church, the dedication or whatever, and she's not there. I do think he's somewhat concerned for her, but more concerned about how it looks for him to have his wife not living with him. And then even like she comes to the Putnam house and in front of people like is like, I'm not here for you. I'm here for my friend, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's impressive holding out on her part, I think, in Gilead.
Yeah.
I also really like how June is like a mob boss in this episode. I love it.
I love that, like, her whole, like, goal throughout this episode. I mean, she said it in the beginning, is like trying to find people, any person to like turn and, you know, to the resistance. And you can see her doing that with Serena and Fred. Like, if she thinks that Serena could, you know, possibly be turned, like, yeah, I like that about her.
Me too. I love that about her. And I like the next scene by the pool. Serena's smoking by a pool now, and June comes to find her. Indoor pool. Damn, the Putnams have such a fancy house. June is even wowed.
I really like too, though, how they have the reflection of them.
Yes.
For Serena and then June, it's like it's showing their two different sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
June sits on the chaise next to Serena and tells her about her conversation with Fred, that he wants her back. And she points out that she has influence and power, access as Mrs. Waterford. When Serena says up to a point, June says, so move the point, like we did before. I like that line. He's lost without you, Serena. Wear the dress, pull the strings. And then Serena offers her a cigarette, and they sit together, companionably smoking. And I kind of like that shot.
I like also that they're sitting side by side.
Mm-hmm.
But the camera only focuses on June, so it's kind of clear that they are not a team.
Yes, yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, there's not a shot. I didn't mean to say shot. I like just the scene of them like smoking together. But yeah, that's a very good point. It's just on her.
Yeah.
Because she's the mob boss, right?
Yeah, and I like that she tells Serena to pull the strings, but she's the one actually in the background pulling the strings.
Of both of them.
Yeah.
And it also feels like these are like two mob bosses like making plans together, like, you know what I mean, like they look like they should be on the same team, but they're not. They're kind of playing against each other.
Yeah.
Then Sylvia's starting to read Oliver's dinosaur book, and he says, wait, will you read it to me and to Emily? And she struggles a little to read through her tears. Sylvia's struggling a lot too, crying a ton. Just having this normal family moment again. And I think it's even more emotional for me when Oliver offers to take over and he's reading it flawlessly. And it's just a really sweet scene all around.
Yeah, it dawned on me when I was watching it that not only is it, you know, going to be overwhelming for her because it's extraordinary that, you know, she's there with her son, but also he asked her to read, which is something previously she could not have done in Gilead. So it was, you know, these two overwhelming huge things like in succession. It was just crazy to see.
It's sweet too though how it like it's almost seamless how they're becoming a family again. Like it's really not that awkward, and it should be, I guess, you know. So It's just really sweet to see. Like I love that both mothers are crying and he's just like, all right, I got this, you know.
Yeah, I love that.
I love it so much.
I love Oliver. Then Serena and June walk into the group gathering, and Fred looks baffled, and June nods at him. I handled it. So he approaches Serena. Naomi comes in with Angela saying how curious she is, and Calhoun says to Putnam, smart girls are trouble. Putnam says, tell me about it. Thus not letting them learn to read, those assholes. Naomi offers Angela to Serena. Is she being nice or bitchy? I'm not sure. Maybe nice. But Janine can't help herself, and she ignores June, trying to stop her, asks if she can hold the baby. When Commander Putnam starts to say no, Lydia unhooks her cattle prod. But Naomi is the one that says, the Lord is gracious and righteous. Our God is full of compassion. And she hands her the baby. She's being like very out of character today. I don't know what
Yes.
Yeah.
She must have smoked something.
Something has to happen. Yes. Janine holds her and kisses her, and Angela's crying, but she hands her back right away, and everyone's relieved, like visibly so. But then Janine pushes it. She says she could have a little brother or sister if you let me be your handmaid again. And Janine's making a scene, and Lydia starts hitting her with a cattle prod. And she keeps hitting her, yelling, stupid girl. And finally, when she won't stop, June covers Janine with her body and yells, no, no. And Lydia realizes she's gone too far. Everybody was horrified as it was happening. Everyone is still horrified after they take Janine away. But I absolutely love when June covers her with her body, though. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. And that's a direct parallel to episode 3 in season 1, where Lydia hits June with the cattle prod.
Uh-huh.
when they were like grilling her about Emily. And then she like tased her and she goes to the floor. And then Serena jumps in and yelled no at Lydia.
Right. I think
really love that.
That's cool. I think that I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but basically though, like Serena knew she wasn't going to get hit. Like Junior is likely to receive the blows at this point. Luckily, like it works and she snaps out of it. But I think it's really cool that she was willing to take the blows to defend her, you know?
Yeah.
But that's a cool parallel that I hadn't thought about too. You're right.
Well, Serena, I guess, took the risk to get hit. I don't know if Lydia would have hit her or not, but because she thought June was pregnant, so she wanted to protect her. Whereas June is protecting Emily or Janine because she loves her, you know?
Yeah, Serena's just protecting the baby, not June.
Right.
Yeah, but it's like very like interesting scene. Hard to watch.
Yeah.
But I enjoy June's role.
Hard to watch that like nobody else would step in.
Right, everybody else is just turning away because they don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
It's like sad to see Janine too, because she's like, I'm just doing God's work. Isn't that what you taught me? Isn't that what you all want?
Yeah.
She's saying like, look, Gilead, I'm playing your game. I'm saying like, I'll do this. I'll give them another baby. She just wants to be a family. And but like, that's not what Gilead wants. They don't want that love and her to feel like that. So it's just, I think that's kind of like I mentioned earlier, like it's like Stockholm syndrome with Janine and Lydia. And then now she's basically saying like, look, I'm doing what you want. And you're still not.
Yeah, Ginger, it's just, you know, Gilead just showing they're all about power and not actually, you know, fertility or, you know, making babies. Because if it was, they'd let her stay. They know she can make a baby with Putnam, but it's all about power and control.
And she'll get attached like she already has.
It's crazy to go from the last Lydia and Janine scene into this one. I like how they did that because it's so genuinely loving and then boom.
Do you guys think that Lydia like genuinely loves Janine?
In her fucked up way, I think that she does, yes. I don't know how to explain that at all.
Yeah.
At all.
I know, right?
I think here though, like it's like she's blinded with rage. Like Janine's not following her rules. And I feel like Lydia's already kind of embarrassed because you know, she's got to ride a scooter and like she almost got killed by a handmaid who she's supposed to be like controlling. So she can't control these girls and now they're in front of all these commanders and wives. So it's like she goes into a blind rage and forgets that like in Gilead, even though they torture people, you don't do it in front of society, you know? And because it was crazy when June stepped in and then Lydia looked around like she had no idea what just happened.
She definitely gets into these blind rages, just like in the last episode. I don't know. Is it the last episode when she attacks June on the stairs?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a repeated thing. And Lydia offers her deepest apologies and starts to leave the room, like, I don't know, trying to be proudly, but then she turns around and she's about to say something and she struggles and then she gives up and leaves. I wrote, Jesus, Lydia, what a character. She goes to the hall and sits in a chair and just starts sobbing. And then it's nighttime at Sylvia's. Emily walks out on the porch where Sylvia's sitting. She asks if Emily's okay, and she says she is, but she thinks she'll head to a hotel and check in. And when Sylvia says okay, she says, I'll stay for a little while. And they sit companionably in silence, sipping beer. And I love how Sylvia gives her like her space, totally. She doesn't pressure her at all to stay or anything. And then the handmaids are leaving, and Alma asks if Janine is okay, and June says she's been through worse. Off Matthew says, "See, that's what you get," to June. And Putnam follows Calhoun out to talk about something. I don't know what that was about.
I assumed that was about using Holly as like a negotiating chip with Canada. That's what I assumed.
Well, he doesn't know yet, right? He hasn't seen the protest video.
Maybe he did though.
But yeah, he could have.
Or maybe he knew, had knowledge. I don't know.
He could have. And then Serena approaches June and says, "Poor Naomi." And June's like, "Poor Naomi, right?" And Serena's like, "Yeah, sure, it's hard for both of them, but that's why the system's designed this way to prevent this from happening." Pretty annoying. I'm pretty annoyed with her. But then she whispers in June's ear, a young girl of Hannah's age, the daughter of a commander, would most likely attend a school for domestic arts. The one in her district is in Brookline by the reservoir. The girls play outside after lunch. Perhaps we'll find a way to see her. And then when June turns to thank her, she's gone. How did she disappear so fast? That's my big question. She's gone really fast.
That line though, like the system was designed to prevent this kind of thing from happening. It's just like, God, that's awful. Like the system was designed to rip mothers from their children and never have them spend time together because oh, what a terrible thing for this to happen where like a mother wants to be near her child, you know? It's like, it's just disturbing.
And clearly it didn't work either.
Yeah. And they're clearly against nature and they don't even recognize it.
Which Serena should, because her daughter, granted, she gave her up and it's not her real daughter, but she's feeling that pain. But it's like Serena, like you voluntarily did that for her best interest. Yet now you have these handmaids who you're literally involuntarily like stealing their children from them, and they're supposed to be just cool with it.
Yeah, that's the way the wives are privileged as well. They're allowed to have those feelings, and the handmaids are not.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Then we're back at Hannah's baptism, getting ready to go, and Luke says he thinks today was important to say thank you to God, and June agrees. Then an eye walks in Gilead and says he needs to speak to Commander Waterford, and June follows to see what's going on. She sees Serena's upset. They're watching a screen, and it's a protest, and June sees Luke and Holly. The eye asks if she knows that man, and she says yes. When he asks his name, she confirms it's Lucas Banquel. Find out anyway. And Serena's in tears, and at first it looks like to me, it kind of looked like she was concerned because maybe she knows they're in danger now. But then when she says, let me see that again, it looks like she's just really happy to see her. She's gotten so big, she says, which is what Emily just said about Oliver.
I put the closed captions on too, and I never had picked up on this before, but in the video, Luke says,
yeah,
she's just like her mom, lots of attitude, like speaking of the baby.
Yeah, you can't hear it at all, but it does show that in the captions.
Which is interesting that that's said like in front of these commanders and this guardian, you know, like about June, that she's full of attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, how stupid is Luke? I'm sorry.
No, that's what I was going to say next.
Yeah.
To take the baby to a protest.
Mm-hmm.
The baby didn't leave Gilead voluntarily. And then you parade it around and say her name and also connect her to her mother.
Yeah.
Come on. And Moira, I was just, where is Moira? Why nobody stopped this?
Yeah.
I assumed Moira was videoing.
Oh no, there was someone asking who's the what's the name of the baby?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody different voice. Yeah. I don't know. It seems obvious that you would want to keep a low profile after you have a baby that's been snuck out of Gilead. What's the word? Anyway,
rescued from Gilead.
Yes. Yeah. But I would keep a low profile, and it causes problems. However, I mean, they should probably have looked to him first if they're looking for the baby.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, why were they surprised that like the baby was with Luke? Like that would be, it would have been like Luke or Emily, you know? That's would be the obvious people.
Right. But I still would lay low and not do that.
Yeah, I agree.
At least not parade her in front of a camera, you know, proudly proclaiming baby's first protest and
and like saying her name and her mother's name.
June walks out of the room and sinks to the floor in tears, but she smiles, so I guess she's happy to see them. I don't know how worried she is yet. I thought she was when she was watching it before, because they were questioning about his name and such.
I thought so too, but I think it's just one of those moments where like a lot is happening, so like she's shocked and realizes like the danger, but then realistically, isn't this the first time she's really seen Luke, like an image of him or anything, since she's been taken?
I think so.
Yeah, so I think it's probably like, oh, like there's Luke, and then I can see my baby's safe. So it's like, I think she kind of like recognized the danger, but then her brain is taking over and realizing like, I'm seeing him for the first time. I miss him, and there's my baby, and like they're together.
Yeah.
To me, it felt like she was like quenching her happiness. She was just trying to hide it, keep her Gilead mask on.
Well, that makes sense until she can walk out.
Yeah.
They can't see her being happy about her kidnapped baby.
I also thought it was interesting that there's an iPad in Gilead.
Yeah, I noticed.
That's just not something I think you would see there.
It struck me as well.
No, anytime there's any sort of, it feels so antiquated. Anytime there's any sort of modern technology, it takes me back. Like I think there's one episode in season 1 where Fred is using a laptop. And I was like, oh, they have laptops and like internet in Gilead. It just feels backwards.
Even Lydia's scooter threw me off for a second.
Yeah.
Figured it'd be like a push wheelchair. It's like the funnest thing in Gilead is that scooter. So then we see Luke and Moira getting questioned by at first I thought they were being interrogated by someone bad about the baby video, something related to Gilead seeing them. But no, it's a priest, and they're trying to baptize Holly. So I guess it is a big Luke thing. And the priest asks where the mother is, and Luke says she's in Gilead. This one should be absolved of their sins. And the episode ends with her being baptized to the song, Let's Go Down to the River and Pray. I like that song a lot. And there's a nice little shot of their new little family, Luke, Moira, and baby Holly. All right, so I guess we're going to move into the deep dive now. If you are a new watcher and you don't want to hear spoilers from future episodes through season 4, we will see you on Monday for season 3, episode 5. Thanks for listening. All right, who has notes on the deep dive?
I had a parallel about Alma talking about Janine bringing out Lydia tea. And she was like, well, she should at least spike it. And then it reminded me of season 4, episode 2, when they were at the other Jezebels and they poisoned the aunt's tea.
Yeah.
So I thought about that. And then just like the mention of Fenway again, it just like, it really is kind of like a symbol of like normalcy, I guess. And like, I don't know.
America.
Yeah, America. Like it's such a like iconic place in Boston, and just the contrast of what June's experience was at Fenway.
Right.
So, you know, that scene with Serena where she's talking about, did you regret you stayed or whatever she said exactly. And June mentions that, you know, she stayed in Gilead because there's hope she could see Hannah. So I started thinking, I'm like, when's the next time she sees Hannah? And then my stomach dropped because the next time she does see her is in the box and she's terrified of her. So I hated that, you know, at that moment, she's so hopeful, like maybe I'll get to see Hannah again. And the next time it actually does happen, it's this horrifying experience for both of them. You know, it's just.
Yeah, I think we talked on a different episode, and our conclusion as moms was maybe she should stop trying to just see her. Like if there's an escape attempt, then it's worth it. But maybe it is going to traumatize Hannah too much to just show up at her school and get eyes on her, you know?
Yeah.
I get that, but I also just understand, like, I think I've said this before. It's just hard to tell a mother, like, stop trying to see your baby. Like, it's just hard.
Yeah.
But Tina, I had that same note, but then I also thought it was interesting because June does get to see Holly again, like in season 4, like they actually are reunited, which she didn't think would happen. And then like she said, there's still hope for Hannah if June stays in Gilead. And then it made me think of season 4, like how sad it is because June didn't want to go to Canada and then ended up there. And then she seemed hopeless in Canada. Like it's like that's playing out where like she's not in Gilead with Hannah, so she feels hopeless that she could even get her back.
Yeah.
So that made me sad about that too, because like she sees how Luke, you know, made efforts to like help her in June, but there's really not a whole lot you can do from Canada, especially if you go like the bureaucratic way.
I'm sure we'll talk about this many times in the next, in the next 2 seasons, but when Serena's so sad about not seeing baby Nicole, it's interesting come like end of season 4, she doesn't care at all about Nicole or seeing her. It's like when she's pregnant, she's totally forgotten about Nicole. I had a very small note, but did you get at around like 11 minutes in this episode, the birthmobile drives over what looks like the same train tracks with the same people inside of it. As in 4-3. When
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's very.
I feel like they're even looking at each other similar, like all suspicious.
Yeah, right. Don't know if that was a coincidence or what.
I had such a flashback or parallel, I guess, when Serena told June where Hannah was and that she's at a school of domestic arts, and I immediately thought of telling her that in 409.
Yeah,
except she was in Colorado at that point, but. I guess one parallel that I noticed was Emily and Sylvia being reunited versus June and Luke in season 4. And it's such a different.
Yes, that's what I was thinking as well. as I watched it.
The contrast is just so different. Like I love the way Sylvia was so like, you know, like she gave her autonomy and let her have her own space and make her own choices. Whereas Luke was the other way, where he just wanted things to go back to normal. And, you know, like I thought about the fact that Emily had said in season 4 that, what was it, like 6 months or something it took for them to sleep in the same bed. And then June ended up being in Luke's bedroom, like as soon as she got home.
Yeah.
Well, even the hotel room, like I was disappointed in Moira not understanding that June would not necessarily want to be alone with Luke in the hotel room, you know? When Moira very quickly leaves, I think Moira would understand better, I would hope. And he's very aggressively trying to like corner her to be alone with her. And it's just not very caring for this unique situation.
I also thought of, I think it's the next episode where Emily is talking to someone from I think it's ICC. Someone's interviewing her and Sylvia is like in the background listening. And then afterwards tells Emily she doesn't care what Emily had done in Gilead. Like she accepts everything that she had done. And I thought of this parallel of the
reunions.
Yeah, of the reunions, thank you. And how Luke is insistent on hearing what happened to June and then promptly accepting the tip of the iceberg that he has heard.
With everything.
So Sylvia knows how horrible it is and she understands, and Luke just, you know, ignores it. So he's in denial how horrible it was, whereas Sylvia is totally probably aware of the horrifying things that happened to Emily and the things she had to do to survive.
Right.
Part of me wonders, like, if it's because Sylvia is a woman.
Right.
I don't know.
Sylvia just very easily like accepts that this is the way it is. And granted, it's a hard thing to accept, especially if you haven't been a part of Gilead, but she just seems more, I guess, capable of just accepting like this is how it is. And she recognizes that Emily is not the same and won't be. Whereas Luke is clinging so hard to the old June and can't wrap his mind around that she's different and she'll never go back to that person.
Yeah.
But it makes me sad though that Clea Duvall, the actress who plays Sylvia, couldn't be in season 4, because I know Bruce Miller had said they wanted to do like a scene with her and Luke to kind of talk about like.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, and like really she couldn't come because of COVID, so it's a bummer that they couldn't do that, because that was something I would have loved to have seen, like them talk about it, or you know.
I'd like to see that.
I thought it was God. Every time I see Chicago, I just think of Nick, and like I just thought it was so striking, I guess, that Luke is at a protest to support Chicago, and I'm like, oh God, like Nick is supposed to go there and be against like Chicago, so it's like the opposing sides, you know.
And June ends up there, so clearly Chicago is still a very significant location for Gilead, for fighting, for rebellion. So
yeah, it'd be interesting if we see it in season 5.
Yeah.
My only other note was when she says like, I ought to hate this man, I ought to, but that's not the way I feel. Right? She does get there, luckily. By the end of season 4, I think that, she's embraced her hatred. So
slightly.
Yeah. And he says during that exchange where they're talking, like similar to this, he says, we had something, I wouldn't call it love, like basically like the same thing that she says here.
And they say love and hate are not so far apart.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's a good point.
So June just had a little problems naming what she was feeling, but it was clearly not love.
Yeah. I think that kind of shows her journey though. Like at this point, she thinks, well, it's not love, but she doesn't outright hate him yet until the end of season 4, and he gets Serena pregnant and he's free, and she's like, no, fuck that, I hate you. Like
he also forces Lawrence to rape her. So
he
does some other stuff too.
And at this point too, they haven't tried to get Nicole back either,
right?
You know,
I thought too of Lydia like taking her anger out on Janine And like she did that, I mentioned earlier, she did that to June in the first season, and then she did it again. Wasn't it to an aunt in season 4 where she hit her?
Yeah. Is it an aunt or is it an aunt? I remember her losing her shit.
And then Lawrence had to like lecture her about it.
Yeah.
It just shows that she's got this pattern of, I don't know. It's rage, but it's like, I think she gets frustrated at the handmaids for not following the rules. But then I think by the time we get to season 4, it's like, I don't think Lydia wants to follow the rules as much. She's waking up to, I don't know, I guess Gilead, Any
other notes?
I just had 2 more quick notes. One of them was that like June was telling Serena to wear the dress and pull the strings. And Serena really did listen to her with that, because later in the season, she does like pull the strings with Fred and gets him arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And then like in season 4, she really like wore the pants or the dress in that relationship. Like she had all the power because she was pregnant and basically, told him what to do. So that journey for her is definitely interesting. And then the other note I had too was at the end of this episode, like Luke and Moira are getting Holly baptized and they're like a little family. And it reminded me of the season 4 finale when June's looking in the window and the 3 of them are there, like being a happy little family.
Yeah.
So it's like they're their own unit. And I'll be really interested to see where that goes in season 5.
Yeah, me too.
Because she's not a part of it, June's not a part of that little, because they formed their own little family now, obviously them raising Holly. And even June mentions that in episode 7, like, to Holly when she's talking to her, like Luke and Moira are doing a great job. And
I really thought when she looked in that window that was her decision to leave them. And
obviously I think she wanted to go back to Holly, but maybe she just thought that Luke and Moira wouldn't accept her after she killed Fred.
Right. And maybe they do.
Yeah. So who knows?
All right. I think that's a wrap on our analysis of season 3, episode 4. Come back on Monday and we will discuss season 3, episode 5. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
I think about us, the 3 of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.